Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be presenting today at the WITS Worldwide event. I would like to thank the organizers of this event and the Executive Director of WITS Worldwide, Professor Margot, for this great opportunity. In this talk, I examine the status of women in leadership roles in the Middle East and North Africa region, focusing particularly on the bursting pipelines and the glass cliffs. Women in the MENA region are drastically underrepresented in the workplace. This is evident by the fact that the MENA region has the lowest female labor force participation rate in the world, at about 18%, compared with 47% globally. The chart to the right-hand side shows the distribution of the female labor force participation across countries in the MENA region, with Algeria and Iraq scoring the lowest at about 12%. Here, I present some shocking facts about women in leadership. Some of the facts and the findings in this presentation are based on research we did at the Center for Women in Business and Leadership, which is housed in the School of Business at the American University of Beirut and funded by the MAPI office at the United States State Department. The percentage of women in senior decision-making roles in the Gulf states is 3%, extremely low. 15% of the companies in the region have anti-discrimination policies versus 42% globally. And this is a major barrier towards having more women in the workforce and eventually in leadership roles. The female participation in STEM workforce is 10%. It's the lowest in the world compared to an average of 29% globally. Women in decision-making roles are about 16%. The STEM sector has the lowest women in decision-making roles at about 12%. Looking at women on boards, we can see that the Middle East has the lowest score at about 3%, the representation of women on board, versus Northern Europe at about 37.6% due to mandates probably over there to have more women on boards. The US and Canada have about 26.5% representation of women on boards. Women organizations gain from having more women in senior leadership positions. Research has shown that this contributes, having more women in leadership positions contribute to higher profitability, improved shareholder valuation, better performance, higher return on equity, less fraud and corruption. And this is because women offer diversity of skills and perspective, which results in distinct problem solving. We examine now the bursting pipeline phenomenon. More and more women in the Middle East are equipped with knowledge, skills, and expertise, but they are unable to secure employment. In the MENA region, for example, women graduate from STEM fields at equal or higher rates than in developing countries, reaching 57% in some MENA countries. This is the highest in the world, versus 31% for OECD countries. However, the issue is that women's participation in STEM professions is very low. It is, in fact, the lowest in the world at about 10% versus a global rate of 29%. In contrast to the leaking pipeline, common in Europe and in North America, the pipeline in the MENA region is experiencing an ever-increasing pressure, which research studies refer to as the bursting pipeline. Why is this the case? Because women face many barriers and disadvantages that we will talk about in a moment that preclude them from accessing the formal employment, let alone leadership positions. This effect is exacerbated by the youth bulge, which has a destabilizing effect on the Arab MENA region, and the youth unemployment in the MENA being among the highest in the world, estimated at 25%. Therefore, female youth are the most disadvantaged, complicating gender dynamics in the MENA and resulting in a very low participation rate in the workforce and in leadership positions. Some of the challenges that women face along their career: women are not applying enough to jobs that match their education. Even if they apply, informality in recruitment policies results in more men being hired. As they grow in their careers, the retention policies are insufficient and they are forced to seek help from outside help to maintain work-life balance. The absence of formal sexual harassment and discrimination policies force women to leave. They are given ample development opportunity, but this does not translate into leadership positions. So we end up with only a few women in leadership positions or decision-making roles. There are other organizational barriers and sociocultural barriers. Organizational barriers include lack of transparency, nepotism, connections, unfair promotion process, lack of senior positions, which limit the women's promotion and access to leadership roles. More training and development opportunities are offered to men. Women are discriminated against due to marriage and having children. If we look at the sociocultural barriers, this includes conflict and instability in the region, inflexibility to travel, long working hours, lack of options for childcare and family, household care, childcare, social stigmas, and discriminatory practices that women face, gender stereotypes, lack of mentors, and lack of networking. Other phenomena include glass walls, which refer to the fact that women take on managerial roles that are supportive in nature, like R&D, like HR versus men, taking on more key positions, managerial roles such as R&D or finance or operations, which paves the way for men taking on leadership positions. Glass ceiling is a metaphor for an invisible barrier preventing women from rising to senior positions, even though they have the skills and expertise. Glass cliff, which refers to the tendency for women to be appointed to leadership positions in times of crisis. Women are elevated to positions of power when things go poor, and they face a greater risk to fall off the cliff. Status quo bias is the main reason behind that. As long as a company performs well, there's no perceived need to change, resulting in a bias towards maintaining the status quo and having more men in leadership positions. However, when things go poorly or in times of crisis, appointing a female leader signals change. And this is more pronounced in contexts in which male leadership is the norm. What can women do to avoid a class cliff? They can consider the basics of the role, the responsibilities, the compensation. They can look more at the company's culture, examine the gender composition of the company's executive team, talk with previous leaders and about their experiences, check if there are mentors that can help women navigate tough decisions in times of crisis. Leaders can make sure that women have access to the right resources, they can assemble teams to support them, and are offered training and development opportunities. Some of the strategies that in order to make sure more women rise to the top, the role of the board and senior leadership is very important. Senior leadership should take actions and set targets to overcome the barriers women face in accessing leadership roles. For example, implementing company-wide gender diversity, making sure there's a gender-balanced leadership, building a strong, inclusive corporate governance framework. The participation of senior leaders in the promotion process sets the tone from the top and reinforces inclusive behaviors that everyone should demonstrate. So the participation, engagement, accountability of senior leader is also very important. Senior leaders should actively promote the importance of development for women and can act as sponsors, mentors, advocates for the development of women and provide more opportunities for women to rise to the top. It's important to build a pipeline of female talent, recruiting and retaining female talent to create an internal pool of competent female employees that are up for promotion. Building a network of female mentors and role models for women. It's important to also report on international criteria concerning women's inclusion, such as ESG, SDG, and WEPs. Implementation of gender-inclusive policies and practices, such as implementing anti-harassment and anti-discrimination policies. The role of government and gender machineries in the MENA region is also important through ministries, councils, and committees to launch legal frameworks to work towards women's inclusion, such as EEO, Equal Employment Opportunities, and important to highlight local success stories.